All right, y'all. On the podcast today, I have a very unique guest. Mike Villa is not only retired chief of police from the Port of Seattle Police Department, but he is also, unfortunately for him, my father. Now, at the time of this recording, Mike was planning to launch his own startup called Villa Consultancy, where he would help leaders develop high-functioning teams and successful organizations. So I wanted to have him on because that is such a critical skill for every founder to have. And as you'll hear, Mike has a long history of leadership and leadership workshops and trainings that he's done for other people. We talk about the Marine Corps leadership mistake that set Mike off on his path as a leader, why most teams fail and the dying art of followership, and the chief of police leadership lesson that every founder needs to hear. Mike is retiring from a 36-year career in law enforcement where he spent significant time on the SWAT team and has spent the last 8 years as the chief at the Port of Seattle. I think you guys will really enjoy this one. This is episode 24 of How Not to Build. Mike, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, you bet. Glad to be here.
Yeah. It's a nice office space you got.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Enjoy it while it lasts, right?
Yes.
Cool. We'll get more into your story, but first, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for today. Man, I'm grateful to just spend time with my son.
Oh, yeah? Is he in town?
Yes, he is. Surprise visit. Wasn't expecting it. And he's in town. And so it's just really awesome to be able to spend some extra time with him.
From what I heard, he's a pretty special guy.
He is. Yeah. Special in a good way. Right?
Yeah. Special in a good way. Is there anything that you're anxious about?
Well, I tend not to worry about things too much, but I am right in the process of getting ready to retire.
Yeah.
That's going to be a huge change for me.
Yeah.
So there's been a little bit of trepidation as far as that goes. I'm excited about it, but at the same time, it's bittersweet. So I've been in the career for 36 years and it's going to be a big change. And so certainly there's a little bit of anxiety with that.
Yeah. As of today is Monday, which is your last week. You are fully done Friday. Congratulations, by
Thanks.
the way. And that's your retirement's part of why I wanted to have you on the podcast specifically. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But the final question, what are you hopeful about?
What am I hopeful about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things. Of course, I'm really hopeful about when I die, going to heaven. So I look forward to that. That's going to be awesome. Can't wait until that time comes.
Hopefully not too soon after retirement.
Yeah, hopefully not too soon after retirement. I would say just as I go into kind of the next phase of my life, the next season, is one of the things that I look forward to is having more time to be able to do. There's so many things I want to do. And so as a chief of police, that takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. So I'm hopeful of just having some additional time and energy to do some other things.
Yeah, very cool. Well, kind of getting back to why I wanted to have you on. I'm in the tech industry. You're in law enforcement, security. So there's some overlaps there. But when you look at, there's a common statistic that 90% of startups fail. You start looking at, well, why do they fail? Is it technology? Is it competence? Like what's the issue? One of the top 3 issues is founder misalignment. It's the leadership team not being able to come together, not being able to share the vision, work together, compromise, all those kinds of things. And with your retirement, one of the things you're looking at next is launching a consulting business designed for execs and leaders, right?
Yep.
And so we'll get more into exactly what that looks like a little bit later, but I think that there's a lot of overlap with your leadership career and kind of how that's looked and how you've grown in that with really what a lot of challenges that startups face. So going back, kind of starting at the beginning, it's as long as I can remember, you've been interested and kind of singled out leadership as a core skill that I feel like you've been developing as long as I've known. So how did you sort of identify that as, something that was very important to your career in the early days?
Yeah, that goes back quite a ways back. I think for me, leadership became an issue or maybe something I thought about more when I went into the Marine Corps. So the Marine Corps is huge on leadership and training Marines to be leaders. And so that's probably where those thoughts really started to sink in on the importance of leading a squad. If it's wartime, obviously preparing for, if you have to be engaged in battle or combat. But as you're training your squad or your people is you have to lead from the front, be a leader. So I think that's where those thoughts started to really materialize. And then as you know, I deployed during Desert Storm. And so I was a sergeant at the time in the Marine Corps.
What year was that?
That was 1990.
And how old were you? So, I mean,
or 91, excuse me.
That was 91. And when you entered the Marine Corps, you were young.
Yeah. I mean, when I went into the Marine Corps, I was either 18 or 19. Yeah, 18 or 19. And then that would have been 1986. And then Desert Storm. Well, we deployed in December, actually. And then right after Christmas is when we began that deployment. I went into 1991.
Okay. So through the training, even before the deployment, it sounds like there was an emphasis on strong leadership.
Absolutely.
Then you were on deployment.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have leadership roles at that time?
Yeah. So I was a sergeant of a squad. And so our platoon was deployed. So I had 12 Marines that worked with me or part of that squad.
Wow. Okay. Was it like, as you look back at that time, being a young leader in a pretty high stakes situation, I mean, were there clear mistakes that you made that you can look back on now? And, I mean, obviously you were doing your best and they tried to train you, but.
Yeah. I think that there's one that probably stands out. And at first I'll just say too that, so when we got activated, we didn't know what we were going into. Certainly looking, in hindsight, hey, that was a pretty quick conflict. But we were successful. And we knew chemical biological warfare was an issue and that, Iraq, we believed had those capabilities. So we weren't sure how long we were going to be gone. And for me, it really hit home that, hey, I'm responsible for these 12 people. And so I need to be a strong and a good leader. And I want to bring every one of these men back home. And so, again, I think that created or put more emphasis on the importance of leadership because people's lives are at stake in that environment. But anyway, so when we got deployed, the way that, the military is, Marine Corps is that all the E5s and above, you're going to be in one tent. You're going to be
E5s?
as sergeants. Yeah.
Sergeants.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sergeants are all going to be in a tent and maybe corporals and sergeants, but you're all going to be in a tent. And then your fire teams, your squad basically would be in different tents. And so they would separate you by rank. One of the things I did was I moved in a tent with the sergeants and I decided that I felt like, hey, it'd be more valuable for me to be with my squad. But they didn't take their leadership as serious. And so, in my opinion, some of them were kind of goofing off and just doing their own thing and
the squad
focused,
or the other
sergeants. Yeah,
the other sergeants.
Sergeants were just focused on more themselves than they were on their people. So for me, it was like, hey, I'm bringing my squad home. I set up a schedule for our guys. We're going to PT every day. We're going to, basically, I'm going to train them while we have opportunity and time, not knowing what was going to happen. And so what I did was I attached myself more to the squad. And the mistake that was that I separated myself from and isolated myself from the other sergeants. Whereas what I should have done was influence those sergeants, because if I was able to influence those sergeants, we might influence the entire platoon, the entire group we were with, and not just my squad. And so I would have had greater influence potentially had I actually stayed in that tent with those other sergeants. And so the mistake was, hey, instead of really becoming a team with those sergeants, and then let's work on our teams together, I isolated myself. Sure, I had influence over those 12, but I really had very little influence over the rest of the platoon.
Gotcha. So, I mean, in the end, even in that case where it's a bit more hierarchical, you would have, I guess, stayed with the pattern there to sleep with the rest of the sergeants and everything, and then still done the PT, still tried to connect with your men as you could, but just kind of allow what might be perceived as like, the hierarchical difference in that organization.
Yeah. And you're still, I mean, you can still, and really it's something that I've seen throughout my career, even as I've moved into being a chief, is that you have, as a leader, one of the benefits of being a leader in an organization is that, can be a benefit, is that you have greater influence, greater capability of influence. It's a benefit if you're doing it for good. So greater capability for influence for good. If, however, you isolate or you silo yourself to just your little team over here, your influence is not going to be as great. And really, you're not doing your team the most you can do for them as well, because if they're isolated, they're doing their own thing, they're not going to be getting necessarily the support that they need from the rest of the organization and the rest of the teams. They're not going to get the resources potentially they need. And I've seen this throughout my career with different teams that have done this, to where they're isolated, they're not attached to the organization, they're trying to go in a different direction. It's not good for their team. It's not good for the organization as a whole. So really what I learned from looking back in retrospect and then just through other experiences is that good leaders really need to be aligned with other leaders within the organization and with the organization as a whole.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the first lesson I had in that.
Is there another example you can give of, I mean, I don't know if there was any direct consequences maybe in that example that you've already shared that you can share those consequences. Because I'm thinking, I mean, lives are on the line too. So I'm just thinking about like, hey, if the other sergeants weren't taking it seriously, you know, was there in a specific case where it's like something happened and we weren't prepared for it like we should have been? But maybe there's another example where you can talk about a team being isolated and not getting the support.
Yeah, absolutely. Several examples come to mind. Probably one, just because it's a really good contrast, is when I was at Tukwila. There were two different teams. I was part of a community-oriented policing team. And so we were on bikes at the time, but we were also out in the community. And so it was a small team. I started with two. I was actually one of the original founders or on that team, myself and another officer. And then that began to grow. At the same time that team was in existence, there was another PROACT team, which was a narcotics team. And I want to say they had maybe 4 members. We had 2 members.
Okay.
So the community-oriented policing team, we were very connected with the organization, and we were working with the patrol bureau, and we were aligned with the goals and the mission of the organization. The PROACT narcotic team, now they were performing a function, but they were very isolated. They did their own thing. They didn't communicate. They weren't really part of the organization. Well, fast forward, within about a year, that team, the PROACT team, was gone.
Like this.
They peeled off one person, they added them to our team. They peeled off another person, they added them to our team. And before you know it, that team is gone. And now we're a team of 6 and we're doing all this great work and we're connected with the organization. The other team was basically disbanded. And I think the reason why, when I look back and I reflect upon those 2 teams, is because the other team, I mean, they did not integrate with the department. They weren't really part of the department. They weren't showing the value. And so folks looked at that, hey, what value does this team have? It's just, they don't have any value to us as an organization. They're not producing and really, now they were doing some good work. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if you just looked at that team as a independent team, they were doing great work. But the value wasn't really being seen, and they didn't have the support that they would have had they been really part of that leadership team and more part of that organization. So that's one example.
That's a good example. So, I mean, it's 2 teams, but you have the local leadership on those teams. It's their responsibility, sounds like, to communicate. Well, like you said, I mean, there's alignment, but there's also just communication of that alignment. Even if they're doing a critical function, that's not obvious to the larger executive team, the larger company. And so really it's the responsibility of the leader of that team to make it obvious, to communicate what they're doing, how that aligns. It's, you know, it's not an assumption they should take for granted that like, well, yeah, we're aligned.
Yeah.
You got to go talk about it.
Yeah. And I'll take a little further. I mean, I absolutely agree with you as far as the communicating piece goes, but part of that communicating is also listening to what does the organization want you to do? What do the other leaders support that you're doing as part of your team? So you're not just out there independently saying, hey, we know what the best thing is, we're going to do it. It's also having that communication. Hey, is this adding value to the organization?
To the larger mission.
Do you guys still want us to continue to do this? I'll give you another example. I was on the city leadership team, chief of the Tukwila Police Department. And I remember one year, budgets are thin and we had to make some cuts and some decisions. And I'm at the table with Parks and Rec and with the fire department and public works and all these other departments, HR, legal, and we're having a conversation about the budget. And I said to the Parks and Rec, I said, hey, Parks and Rec are important. It's important that we have nice parks. You guys have demonstrated that. You've communicated that. Why don't I give up 2 of my officer positions so that we can have nicer parks in the city of Tukwila? And I don't think we did. I think in the end of the day, after we'd had that discussion, they said, no, public safety is really important.
Okay.
But the But that was the team that was working at that time. It wasn't just Mike Villa. It was the team that was working at the time. We all, as leaders, we wanted what was best for the city, not what was best for just my individual department. And I'm willing to give up resources for another department because I know, hey, if the city decides that's the best thing for the city. So it's not just me coming and saying, hey, we need public safety. And so this is what I'm doing, guys. I'm fighting crime. We're arresting people. We're helping victims. Part of it is me also saying to that whole group, what do you guys want? I could give up 2 officers to get a nicer, to make sure the bathrooms are clean in the Parks and Rec. Is that what we want as a team? Now the team actually said, no, Mike, we need public safety. We don't want you giving up your officers. That's kind of interaction that you need to have on that leadership team, where it's not just about my individual unit, but it's that collective goals that we come together as goals that we decide are the goals of the organization.
So
and they weren't doing that. That narcotic team wasn't doing that.
Right.
They were like, hey, we want to take more drugs off the street. We want it, which was great.
Right.
But in the whole scheme, that's not, the chief at the time said, hey, okay, I might see some of your stats, but I don't see the value in that. That's not really what I want. I want more community policing. So that's where I'm going to put my money.
Right. I think part of that's, I was actually I guess two episodes now ago, probably I was talking to Saul and we kind of brought up just briefly the dying art of followership. And I think it takes a lot of humility. You got to give up your ego. You got to give up. And even if you, in your mind, like that narcotics team, drugs might be the biggest problem. And statistically, it might be the biggest problem, but it might take some extra humility and ability to kind of set your own stuff aside a little bit to say, look, if that's not the mission of the company, I can align to that mission, or I can go find another job. At the end of the day, you can go find another job.
Very true.
If you don't want to align.
That's right.
And I make it sound easy. It's not easy for sure, but I think it's, to your point, it's important in building that trust. The leadership knowing that you can align to their agenda that particular year, that particular push, whatever, I bet would pay dividends down the line.
Yeah.
Just in the trust, just knowing that this person's willing to give up their personal stuff in order to benefit the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, I guarantee you earned a ton of respect in that meeting saying, look, I can give up 2 of my officers. Like if that's where we want the focus to be, I'm willing to figure out a way to support you guys in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially, think about it, like if you're on a team working with other folks and you know that the team members are more interested in the success of the team than their own individual success.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems that some teams have, is that people come into it and it's like, hey, I'm just interested mostly in my success or the success of my smaller team, versus no, if you're part of the team, we want to win as a team. And so we don't, on one hand, it's like, hey, it doesn't matter how many goals I score. I just want to win as a team. So
that resonates because, again, my very first experience at a startup, the leadership had a really tough time getting along. And one of the things I think that did impact the eventual outcome of the company went under. It didn't survive. And one of the things that I seemed, and maybe you can, corroborate this, but I think what happened to us was that the engineers in the company had a very myopic view of this is the right answer. Kind of thinking about your narcotics team. It's like, look, drugs are bad. Like they look at that as this 100% true, objective truth. This is objectively better than Parks and Rec because we're saving lives. But I think you have to, again, have the humility to say like, look, maybe I'm right, but maybe I'm not. And I have to admit that I'm going to be myopic with my perspective sometimes. And it's not a moral problem. I saw this in my teams. Like we felt like this is a moral problem. Like if we have to go this way, marketing wants us to go that way, we have to do this thing. And it's like, well, I think you have to respect the value that marketing or Parks and Rec bring to the culture of the city. And you might be right, but I think having the humility to say, I might not be right. And this time I'm going to follow this other person and just see how it goes, or follow this other department and see how it goes. Does that seem to resonate?
Yeah, it really does. And I think there is, it's natural tendency for us to have a narrow focus. And really, most of my law enforcement career, that's kind of been the perspective that I've seen a lot of chiefs or command staff have is, hey, we're the public safety experts. So we know what the customer wants, or We don't even think about it as customers. We know what the city needs. We know what the county needs. A few years back when I was at Tukwila, and then we did it again here at the Port of Seattle, is that I really try to take a different approach to it. And my approach has been that, so here at the port, it's the airport or it's the seaport. At Tukwila, it was the community. You're our customers. What do you want? Now, we have expertise, and so we can tell you what we think will work based on our experience and expertise, but it's really like, what do you want? So at Tukwila and here, I developed service level agreements. Said, okay, let's just work through this problem of crime in our cities and public safety, and let's talk about what we can offer as a police department. But you're the customer. You're the one paying. It's the taxpayers who are paying, or it's the Port of Seattle that's paying. And so I'm really working with and partnering with to find out from them what they want to see and then bring them into the problem solving.
That's super interesting, taking the approach of public safety as a customer. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
But I want to go back to, before we get too much into the port stuff that you've done at the Port of Seattle here, Tukwila, you ended up, from the time you started to when you left, that was 27 years?
Yes.
27 years at Tukwila, went through many different levels. We won't get into all of it, otherwise we'll be here for a day and a half. But when you left there, you were the chief of the Tukwila Police Department, right?
Correct.
So through those 27 years, I know it's a big question, but what do you think was the biggest leadership mistake that you made at Tukwila?
I'll go back to, so there's plenty of things I can think of, but I'll go back to something you said earlier that was a big mistake I made. And it wasn't just one incident. It was a way of thinking. And it goes back to followership. And it really wasn't until I became a chief of police that I had two deputy chiefs who really showed me what it meant to be a follower. And I think that I could have been a much better leader had I learned how to follow first and been a better follower. And I remember when I was overseeing the operations or the patrol bureau. So we had two deputy chiefs, a patrol bureau and a services bureau. And deputy chief would oversee those bureaus.
That covered the whole department, basically two halves of the department.
Yeah, two halves of the department. And I remember doing some things in the bureau that, like some recognition, quarterly employee of the year, and some other things, other initiatives that I had started with in the bureau. And my chief at the time saying, hey, Mike, those are really great ideas. I like what I'm seeing, but it'd be great if we did it throughout the whole department. And so I'm going to go back to the followership piece. So he was saying, that's great. It'd be good if we did this. My kind of mode of operation, my MO, was that anytime I had a new team, my focus was that team. Now, I know I talked earlier about being, one with the command team, one with the leadership team. So there's a little nuance here that's a little bit different when it comes to followership. But really, it was like I was working fairly independent. I was aligned with the command team and what they wanted and our goals, but I was fairly independent in wanting the success of my bureau or my unit, my squad, whatever it might be, my division. And that was more my focus than what does the chief want? What's his or her vision? What's the vision of the deputy chief, like when I was a commander, and really supporting that vision.
Sure.
And so when I became a chief, I had two deputy chiefs that it was just part of their DNA or their training, but they're like, hey, chief, we want to support your vision. And they really aligned, they supported, the things that they did were supportive of that. So I took away from that. It's like, man, I wish I would have been a better follower all those years. Now, my boss will tell you, I probably drive her crazy. Hey, boss, how can I help you? How can I support you?
Sure.
What can I do? Sure. I'm constantly looking at what can I do to support her? And part of that is that if she is successful, then my team's going to be successful. Like, we should want the success of the person over us because of they're successful. So it's really just followership, supporting is one of the mistakes that I had, that I wasn't a very good follower through most of my leadership career until becoming a chief at Tukwila.
I'll tell you, man, the easiest way to be your boss's favorite person, seriously, is just to say, how can I help?
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel it now too, being 3.5 years in business and working with a lot of different people. It's like, there was one guy in particular over the last 3 years that every time, I mean, it was like you're right. It almost got annoying sometimes, but like daily stand-ups, how can I help? And just that attitude, just that like showing up with that attitude of just like, hey, how do I make you successful? I mean, that's like, and he wasn't even the best at his job per se, it's not like he stood out from some other, like, in my industry, it's like the 10X engineer, like the best, he writes billions of lines of code or whatever. But just like having that person on the team that is like there to help, just like they stand out, and you want to keep that as a leader. You want to keep that person way more than the guy who's always coming to the table with like, why don't we do it this other way, and whatever.
Yeah, I'll tell you a couple other things that are really helpful with that philosophy too. Because one thing I see leaders do is that we're glory seekers. Like we want the credit for things, and so we'll do good work because we want our people to like us. And I don't think that's what we're getting paid for, but we want people to like us. And so like we want to be the popular one, but a good follower, they don't care about the credit. They want the CEO of the organization or whoever their leader is. They want to elevate that person. And I can tell you that makes a difference within an organization when you do that. I mean, it increases morale. People feel supported. It's one thing like if you're a supervisor or a commander or a manager or something like that, and your people are like, oh, you're the best. You bring us donuts every morning or whatever, right? And you support us. You went to bat for us. You did these things. And that's great. But for the organization to know that their CEO actually supports them, that the CEO decided, sure, maybe you brought up the idea, but the CEO said, hey, you know what? I'll fund that. I'll support that. I'll support that recognition time that you want to give to your people. That increases the desire that your staff, your people are going to have to advance the company, the organization, to be more committed to the goals, to the vision that you have, if they feel supported from the top. And so that's another area where followership, good followership can really help as well. So, and there was another thought, I lost it now, but just regarding that.
Yeah. And I think just for the listeners, like I think both you and I know you well enough too, that I don't think we're saying like you should always fall in line and go with the herd and don't think for yourself. Like I don't think that's part of it, because I think if anything, we have an abundance of individual free agent type of people in the workforce. So I think right now we're maybe kind of heavily weighted to one side, and it's not like you should only ever follow, but I think it's just kind of highlighting how valuable that can be.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because actually, like because that helps. When I say followership, part of good followership is you are going to disagree with the boss. You're gonna tell. I mean, I'll tell my people, say, look, if you don't disagree with me and you don't give me another opinion, or you don't say, hey, Mike, you're going to step on it, you're going to make a mistake. Why do I have you on my team? I don't need you on the team. And so, and really, it's like if you let me fail, then you just hurt the team, you hurt the organization. So my expectation is you're going to tell me when you think if I'm making a mistake and it affected morale on the team, or if I did something that might be perceived as unethical or whatever it might be. Like good followership is someone who's going to say, well, boss, let me catch you. I don't want you to fall. And so
how do you strike that balance though? How do you strike the balance of Mike's going to fail, I have to save him. And then day after day, week after week, I'm just like, I'm submitting articles, I'm emailing you, I'm texting you at home. Don't do that decision. How do you?
Well, if you have to do it over and over and over again, you probably need to look for a different company or a different place to work. Because you don't want to necessarily do that. But
there's got to be like some tactical like guiding strategies or tactics that you've used to like help get the feedback, but then still move forward.
Sure. Yeah. A couple thoughts come to mind. One is that, well, first of all, in the occasions where I've done that, I haven't had to do that a lot. The occasions where I've done it, the person has been receptive. Well, in one case or a few cases, they've been very receptive to it. They've appreciated the feedback. They've thanked me for the feedback.
When you were the person giving the negative feedback to your boss. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just give you an example. We had, it's been a couple of times where communication went out organization wide. It hit my department, of course, that really created some morale issues that upset people. People took offense to it. And I went to my leader at the time and said, hey, I know you didn't intend to do this. You probably didn't even write it. You probably had someone else write this, but this is the effect it had. This is how you impacted the organization. And that person said, Mike, thank you so much for telling me. They took full ownership of it. And so now I've had another one where it was a trust issue, and it was something that the leader did that breached trust with me, but he also had a pattern of doing that with other directors. And so I talked to him, and in that case, I just said, hey, this is what you did. This is the behavior. This is how it breached trust. I'm willing to work with you to try to regain that trust, but right now you don't have it. And so in that particular case, he never earned it fully, but we just worked around it. But I also tried to communicate to him, you've done this to other people too. So I don't know what he did with that information, but for me, it's like, hey, I've done my part. I'm being a good follower. I'm trying to lead up with him. If he takes it, he takes it. If he doesn't, he doesn't.
Because again, that was a boss at the time, somebody higher than you. So I guess because my mind went to like, hey, what was the goal? What was your goal in that conversation?
Yeah.
That decision you made to tell your boss, by the way, you've broken my trust.
Yeah.
And basically you have to earn it back. I mean, that's a pretty bold thing to do.
Yeah.
So I guess what were you hoping for an outcome with that?
So the goal there was that we have to work together closely, and I want to have trust. So the goal was, can we try to reestablish trust? Right now, you breached it pretty significantly to where you don't have it, but going forward, if you change that behavior, you can earn it back. So the goal was, I want to have relationships of trust with the people I'm working with. I don't want to be thinking every time, hey, I can't trust this guy, because there's a tax on trust as what is it, Covey? I think the Speed of Trust.
Stephen Covey.
Yeah. He talks about that tax on trust. So I'll just give you an example of that same person. So later he wanted me to do something, and I said, I'll do it. You put it in writing, because we don't have trust, because I'm going to do it. And then you're going to say, you didn't know anything about that. And who's going to get in trouble for that? Now, it wasn't anything unethical.
Sure.
But it was something contrary to what the mayor had said he wanted. So the mayor said he wanted something. My leader said, do something different. I said, I'll do it, but I want it in writing. Send me an email.
Yeah.
And we had that conversation like 3 times. He kept telling me, like, he'd bring it up. And I'm like, hey, send me an email. Send me an email.
Did it ever show up in an email?
No, never showed up. So I didn't do it, because I'm not going to do that. I know that's not what the mayor wants.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's a tough thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even as I listened to it, I'm like, well, I don't know if I do that. But I mean, your goal, I mean, I think one, it was awareness, like maybe he probably knows, but maybe he doesn't know. So it's like, he needs to be aware of the impact that he's having on, his team. But I think number 2, you were kind of trying to help. I think you also just expressed like, look, I want to have, like, this is my goal, right? Like,
yes,
my goal and your goal is that I can support you and you can support me, and we're this happy, harmonious team. Like, we all want that unity, right? Yeah. I mean, marriages, teams, projects, like, the unity is always a common denominator that everybody wants that. And so I think, your goal was to say, like, I'm willing to work toward it, but I'm letting you know that's not going to be easy, and I might be asking for things in writing going forward.
Yeah.
You know? Or at least he knows where that's coming from now.
Yes.
Hopefully he picked up on it.
Yeah. And really, like, I wouldn't need that. I mean, hopefully we could get beyond that.
Yeah.
But at that moment, that's just kind of where our relationship was, and I would say too that most people don't realize when they have a blind spot or they do something that they might have a behavior that they just don't recognize is offending people, or it's impacting morale. It's not inspiring people. It's having that opposite effect. So a lot of times people don't recognize that. They don't know it. I mean, I'm the same way. I've had, it's not just me. I mean, I've had actually I do an exercise with my team where we basically will write down, and we've done this a few times, how does a person contribute to a team? How does a person's behavior detract from a team? And we'll do it as a team, and we'll write down for each of our team members those 2 things.
Oh, wow.
And then we'll share.
Oh.
And so I've had, commander, deputy chiefs that in these team meetings have told me, hey, Mike, here's something you're doing that detracts from the team. But going back to followership, that's a good follower. They're trying to help me to be more successful in leading the department.
That's a cool exercise.
So
get the leadership team together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the intent is not, go ahead.
Well, I think we're about to say the same thing. I mean, I think if your team has that buy-in going into it of like, look, this might be painful, but we all want this unity, and this is maybe a way to get there. You might have to convince them a little bit that that's the way to get there. But if you have that buy-in, I could see that hopefully going.
And my experience too, because I've done that on multiple different teams, most people want to know. While it's very hard to give that feedback, most people want to know. And I try to push it like, hey, no, you need to tell me something.
Right.
Give me something that I can do that will improve my contributions to the team. You need to give me something.
Is that anonymous?
No.
All right.
No, but.
All right. Cool. Well, I mean, if anybody has more questions about that, that's one of your focuses going forward. So we'll maybe hear more about that in a minute. 27 years at Tukwila, you finished all that. I think some of your stories have actually been more at the Port of Seattle, but you then moved to the Port of Seattle during an interesting time. You've been here 8 years now.
Yep.
So you joined just before COVID.
2017, so 2 years before.
17. Obviously, a lot has happened politically with all of that. You did not come over as the chief of police. You wound up as the chief of police in part, I would say, maybe not a series of unfortunate events, but one or two unexpected things happened and you ended up in that seat. What's been the biggest, one thing I was thinking about, and just like, okay, you have 27 years, you're already the chief of police. I think there's a tendency, at least in my mind sometimes, to think, once I've hit a certain level, I've arrived. I am the apex leader now, and there's now I just exercise my leadership. So I'm really curious to hear, like, in the last 8 years, what have been some of the leadership, skills that you've still had to develop? I hope you have an answer to that.
Oh man. Yeah. So no, it was a really great experience for me to come over from Tukwila to the Port of Seattle. I came over in 2017. In 2020, that was COVID had hit early 2020, late
March.
March 2020. George Floyd had occurred. That was either late May or June 2020. And those things were impacting the organization, as you know, very negative. A lot of people were very negative towards law enforcement. I mean, we had people walking by our officers, saying "F you" and giving them bird and things like that. And it was a really hard time. A lot of police started leaving the career. Yeah. And they're just like, hey, yeah, I know I got 10 years in, but I'm not going to wait till retirement. I'm done. I'm going to go be a farmer or, software developer or something like that. So a lot of people were leaving. And then it's kind of interesting. My wife and I was talking to her and I said, hey, I don't need to be a chief again. I was a chief, like you said, Tukwila. I came here as a deputy chief. I'm happy to be a deputy chief. I don't want to be a chief in today's environment. And then I got a phone call from my superior at the time. Said, hey, our other chief is taking some leave and we'd like you to be the acting chief of police. So in my head, it's going through really fast. Okay, well, if I say no, who are they going to have do it? So I said yes, went in, told my wife, because we were home at the time, it was a Saturday or Sunday or something. And she pretty much freaked out. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
So I said, honey, if I don't do it, who else is going to do it? And it's, it's a hard time right now in law enforcement. Someone needs to step up. And even at that time, I remember seeing chiefs starting to quit too. It's like, you're there, they're starting to quit.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah. But going back to that, so I became the chief at a pretty tumultuous time. And my leadership was so challenged during that time. I would say the next probably 2 years, year to 2 years. So there were a lot of things that had to be very fine tuned. One of the issues, so several issues that were going on. One was that there was a lack of trust from the Port of Seattle, the larger Port of Seattle corporate offices, HR, legal, with the police department. So it wasn't just the community, but it was leadership within the port. Part of it was because they just didn't know us and they didn't know me. So I had to earn that trust.
That's a fair point because you were pretty new.
I was new. They didn't know who I was.
Coming in from the outside, you didn't grow up in this particular system like a lot of them probably had.
Yeah. My 27 years at Tukwila, I grew up in Tukwila, but then when I got hired there, every promotion I had, the leadership trusted me. They had confidence in me. They knew me. They knew what I was about. The officers, I had credibility amongst the staff and the officers. I was on SWAT for 13 years while I was there. I knew a lot of regional people within the region. So I had a ton of credibility at Tukwila. Here, I had none. So there were, by word of mouth, there was a little bit, and I knew some of the people here. So there's a small group, but there's a lot of people that are like, hey, we don't know anything about this guy.
And probably still that was still focused within the law enforcement community and not necessarily the other departments, maybe.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
So what was the main thing that you had to learn or that you had to do to gain that credibility in a new organization?
Yeah. So that was the challenge. One of the big challenges was I had to reestablish myself as a leader, I had to rebuild trust, reestablish myself, regain that credibility. So that was the challenge. So going back to your question, what were some of the things I had to do? A big piece of it was, probably several things, but let me name one more group. So you had the port leadership, you had the officers and the staff.
Okay.
who were doing, the bulk of the work. But you also had a command team that they had worked with me a little bit. I was in services bureau, so it wasn't a real high visible position here either that I had. Kind of back in the corner, you get the work done on the backside. So I really hadn't.
When you were a deputy chief?
As a deputy chief
Okay,
here,
okay.
yeah. So I also had to make sure that I earned the credibility with that command team. Now they knew me a little bit, but so really had all three layers, I guess you could say. So probably a little bit similar tactic with all three, but in different ways. A big piece of it was just communicating.
Mm.
And leaders need to communicate. They need to build trust, but building trust requires that you are talking to people, you are being transparent, you're being open, you're willing to have those conversations. And so that's via phone calls, emails, videos. I started doing some videos because it's 100 now it's 194 full-time employees in the police department. Back then, I think we were probably about 180 or so. So that we had some vacancies.
So recorded videos, not just like turning your camera on during a meeting, but
yeah, I had doing a recording and sending it out. So people see my face, they see my expressions, because it's hard to reach that many people. And we work a 24/7. And so you would go to shift briefings and do that.
you work at 24/7.
I mean, operations.
Okay,
We're open.
The port is open
24/7.
24/7,
Yeah.
multiple shifts. So
Police
the night guys are not going to see you most of the time because you're
Right.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So really trying to reach and touch people with those communications as we were going through difficult times, talking about COVID, talking about, George Floyd, the reform bills that were coming out. And so trying to talk about those issues as well. So that was a big piece. Building relationships. I mean, for people to trust you, they just have to get to know you. And so really building relationships, problem solving, working with your people were some of the things I did.
Can you speak to the building relationships? Because again, as I look back at my earlier career, that felt more like a buzzword than something actionable a lot of times. And people would say you have to build relationships, and then it was like, okay, like what is that? So I guess what does that mean? But maybe more specifically, tactically, what did that look like for you to build that relationship?
Yeah, and I think, it's a great question because you only have so much time. And so you have to be strategic about it. And one of the things that I had to do is say, who is it most important for me to build relationships with? Because I don't have time. It's kind of interesting. When I first started in law enforcement, I didn't care who the chief was. I didn't care to ever see the chief. I work at nights. I'm working for my sergeant. I'm working swing shift. I like the weekends, whatever it might be. And I really didn't need to see anybody on the command team. In today's world, everyone wants to talk to the chief. It's like not everybody, but a lot of the newer officers and stuff, they want that relationship.
Yeah.
I don't have time for it.
Yeah.
And so while there was the desire, well, we don't see the chief enough. We want to see him more. And it's why I went to these briefings, but you weren't there, or because you're working opposing days, but everybody wants to have that personal relationship. And so you don't have time to do that. So for me, I had to be very strategic and ask myself, what's going to add the most value to the organization? So my command team, hey, I'm going to build relationships with the command team. So some of that's just spending time with them, but it's also getting to know them. It's getting to, hey, spouses, significant others, children, what's going on in your life. We actually started to, I didn't do this at Tukwila so much, but here would do a quarterly event where we just go do rock, bouldering, axe throwing.
Did you actually boulder?
Yeah.
One time? Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not a few people couldn't come, but anyway, we did that.
Yeah.
What's that little golf thing?
Putt golf?
Not putt golf. There's another place that's out that does anyway. So different things that we would do. Try to do it on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
Do a kind of a holiday Christmas event during December where we do a gift exchange. So just doing things like that with that command team, which is fairly tight, but then also building relationships with other key people, such as the HR director, with legal. And those are more professional relationships. They're not going to get as personal, but they have at times. There's been times where it's, where they've shared personal things that are going on in their life and things of that nature. So, but anyway, does that answer that question?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, personalizing it. I think one thing that I learned over the years, because I don't know, I'm a slow learner on some things, but it's like building a relationship. What does that mean? And really one way that I've thought about it is genuinely care about the other person.
Yeah. Perfect.
If you genuinely
Mm.
care about that other person, it doesn't become this formula you're trying to figure out. Well, what question should I ask them? It's like, hey, if I genuinely care about Mike, I'm going to wonder, like, where did he come from? You know, like, what's his roots? You mentioned spouses, kids, hobbies, things like that will just naturally come out if you just genuinely care.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that I've really had to work on, and actually had some feedback from my team that sometimes the way I communicate, it doesn't show that I care. So I'll share a story with you in a minute on that. But I have had to consciously say, okay, I need to ask this person about their family. I need to, because I'm so task oriented. Like I'm on mission. That's what I'm task oriented. So I have had to work on that. So I guess the thing I would just say to leaders, like, hey, you might have to work on it, but you've got to do it. You've got to build relationships with care. The story I was talking about was
it's part of your job.
Absolutely.
I think that's what's difficult.
Yeah.
Like, your job is to deliver the budget in the project and on time, on budget, all that stuff. But as a leader, your job is to have those trust relationships. And if you're not allocating time for that, you're not fulfilling your job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's cool. I got to move this table too, because it keeps making
squeaking.
The chair squeak. Yeah. I mean, just to give you an example, we're trying to figure out our staffing because it was hard to fill all our shifts. So I had proposed a schedule change. People got up in arms about it. I mean, you're talking about a bunch of police too, so they're all carrying arms, so it's not good. They were pretty upset about it. And so we were having this discussion, a briefing, and there was quite a few people in there. There's probably 30 people in the briefing room because you had nights and days. They overlapped. They came in. And I'm basically saying, hey, we got to do something. We have to fill these vacancies. We're putting the port at risk by not having enough people here, blah, 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 blah. And people were explaining how, it's not the schedule they wanted and this and that, and just really up in arms and really mad. And so I said during the meeting, well, my job is not to be Santa Claus. I mean, I'm just thinking, man, you want all these things, right? I'm not here to give you gifts and presents and stuff. I'm not your Santa Claus, Man, I took some slack for that later.
Yeah.
It's like, man, you're so insensitive, Learn my lesson. So I try to communicate in a more compassionate way.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's a big part of it is when you open yourself up to that feedback, you're going to get it. And all you can do is just keep improving.
Yes.
Meaning you can't think you're going to get it right. You can't be offended. You have to just acknowledge like, hey, there's going to be areas of growth. And the sooner you can just welcome the feedback, the better off you're going to be. Yeah. What was you guys did those little round tables of like, what are you doing to contribute? What's your behavior that detracts from the organization? What was the toughest piece of feedback that you received? That you've ever received in those exercises?
I don't think there was anything really difficult to hear. The two things, the last two times we've done that I recall was, one was just that I wasn't communicating to the entire team. So some people wouldn't get communications. So if you're not here, you miss a meeting, there's some communication that goes out.
Okay, yeah.
We haven't been really good about making sure that everybody's getting that information.
Yeah.
That's on the command team. And then the last one, actually the very last one we had was people had said that, hey, Chief, sometimes when you communicate, we all know you care because it comes out. I mean, it's like they all know because they know me. They go, look, we know you. We know that you really care about this department and you really care about people, but you don't show it.
Yeah.
And I have had that feedback too. Like when I'm talking to people, they're like, they have felt, because I don't express a lot of emotion. And so people at times have just kind of felt like, man, does that guy does he even like me? But
yeah, that's hard. It's hard to adapt your personality or whatever you've, nature, nurture, whatever, like wherever you are, if you have like a really ingrained way of communicating or really ingrained,
especially when I'm trying to like problem solve.
Yeah.
Like if you bring a problem to me and I'm thinking through it, like I will show no expression because I'm processing.
Yeah.
And you have, like I've been told, like I had no idea what you were thinking.
Yeah.
You have I hate to play poker with you, dude, because I cannot read your mind.
I'm even worse.
So, are you?
Because when I'm thinking, it's an angry face. I start to scowl for whatever I do.
Oh, really?
And I've had like my business partners and even my wife.
It's got to create some problems in the home.
Man, they're just like, why are you mad at me?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not mad at all. What are you talking about?
But I'm the same way with my wife sometimes, and it has caused problems because we'll have a conversation and she'll be, and I go into like work mode.
Yeah.
And I'll start maybe asking her questions or whatever, but I'm doing it I'm not doing it in a caring, compassionate, loving way. I'm doing it in a problem solving way.
Like an interrogator.
Yeah. Oh man. Anyway, I have to work.
Man, I'm leaving some things on the floor here because we're running out of time.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault at all. It's just there's more I wish we had time to unpack. But for sake of time, we'll kind of move forward. As I mentioned earlier, you're retiring, a great career you've had, a lot of lessons learned, it sounds like. And I think a lot of, one thing I wish we had more time to touch on is that, I think a lot of this you've learned on the job, but I know that you've also been to a lot of leadership training, conferences, programs, and I'm sure that's helped a lot. Actually, maybe just real briefly, if there's one for somebody who's in a leadership role on a team, I guess this goes into what you're doing next after this, but I was going to say, like, was there a major, let me ask, I'll put this in two parts here. In your career up to this point, what has been the most beneficial book or program or podcast that's kind of helped you continue to develop your leadership skills?
Yeah, it's been I've read a lot of books, been to a lot of training, 3-week, residence training, 10-week on-premise training for executive leadership, law enforcement leadership. And there's a ton of good leadership stuff out there. I think the thing that's been the most practical, though, the most useful for me, has been something that from an author that is not in law enforcement, not in the military, but wrote a book about, it's called The Advantage, Patrick Lencioni.
The Advantage?
Yeah, The Advantage. He's with the Table Group. It's a small book. He's actually written several different books, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. But the thing that was really beneficial with that, when I came across that material and read it, was he provides an approach or a process of building cohesion within a leadership team and creating clarity in your organization. And in doing those two things, building cohesion and clarity, you will build healthier, more high-functioning teams. And what really resonated with me when I read his book was he took what I learned on SWAT. So being on the SWAT team, it's the most high-functioning team that I've experienced, and I loved it. There's high level of trust amongst team members. There's really good conflict and discussion. You reach a commitments that you have to abide by because there's life and death situation. It's life and death. And so the tactics you decide on, you make certain commitments, certain goals, objectives. There's really high accountability, which a lot of teams wrestle with, having that good accountability. And we produce results. Every mission is like, hey, we got to come home alive. And so anyway, what he described in the book, and he's dealing in the business world and Fortune 500 companies, that's kind of his world. But what he conveyed in the book hit on all those things that I experienced on the SWAT team. So I took his material and started utilizing it to facilitate workshops and have used it with teams I've been on. I'm using it with my current team and have really just used that approach to, I think, really elevate our level of performance.
Perfect.
So that would be the one book, but it's not, I'm just going to go back real quick.
Yep.
It's not necessarily, this is great leadership. This is great team building.
Okay.
So it's really more about teams and not necessarily leadership. So like if you said, hey, could I just go to one hour seminar on leadership? I might have to think through and say, I'll go to this person, or this person. But if you're talking about, I want to build a great team, high functioning team, and increase the health in our organization, that's where I would point you.
Gotcha. And that's the good segue, because it seems like that's been so valuable that that's part of your plans post-retirement. Tell us about that. What are you up to next?
Yeah. So villaconsultancy.com is villaconsultancy.com.
Check the show notes.
So I've already started a consulting business. I haven't really launched it, I guess you could say. And so what that consulting business does is I use the Table Group approach, materials.
What is the Table Group?
That's the Patrick Lencioni. He's the founder. He's the one that wrote The Advantage. So
it's his company.
That's his company.
Okay.
Yeah. And they have consultants that are part of their company. I'm my own consultant, but I'm able to use all of their material. I'll just keep the copyrights on it.
Right.
I have a mentor that is part of that Table Group company that has mentored me the last couple of years. But I've been using their material for close to 15 years now. And it's kind of this 3-step process. Basically, it's let's evaluate, let's assess where the team's at and how they're doing on those areas that I mentioned earlier, which, by the way, are the 5 dysfunction areas. So
okay, yeah.
Trust, conflict, commitment, accountability, and results, essentially. And so those are the 5 areas. So there's an assessment done on the team. Then I would customize, and they do the same thing, basically customize a 1 or 2 day workshop, depending on where your team is at in the organization. Come in and do that workshop, and we're going to work on first cohesion, but then also answering some critical questions that any healthy organization needs to ask. And then there's follow-up after that, where I produce a playbook is what I call it, but it's just a 1 or 2 page document that essentially says, hey, here's how we answer these 6 questions, and here's what's most important going forward. So anyway, so produce that, and then there's follow-up with that. So the approach isn't like just a one and done. It's really developing a relationship with that leadership team, being there to help them to continue to implement those principles for their team.
And again, this focuses a lot more on kind of the team dynamic versus like an individual leader looking to upskill themselves. Yes. And is there kind of an ideal team size for that? Is it 3? Is it 200?
Yeah, no, I think anything above 12, you're getting too big. I think 12 pushes the boundaries even. I mean, really, if your executive leadership team is 6, 7, 8, that's a little bit better, more manageable.
Yep.
I mean, you could be less than that, of course, but yeah.
Very cool. Is there anybody in particular that you're looking to connect with, or you would want to reach out to if they're interested?
Yeah, I mean, really for me, any leader who is passionate about or just wants to further develop their team. I mean, that's one thing I've found is I've done this not just for within my organizations, but I've gone out and I've done some of these for some other organizations as well. But as I've talked to other chiefs and other individuals, there's certain people I talk to that are like, hey, I want my team to be higher performing. I want to develop the team. I want it to be higher performing. Those are the folks I want to connect with.
So even if it's not like, hey, I'm having serious issues, I mean, that's maybe a good reason to do this also. But even if it's just, hey, we're fine, but we feel maybe a little closer to the average and we just want to maximize our individuals, maximize our potential as a team.
Yeah, I recently did the Valley SWAT Team, their leadership group. They scored in the green. I mean, it's the highest scores I've seen on the online assessment. Almost canceled. Said, okay, you guys are good. You don't need me. It was a 2-day workshop though. They came out of it like, this is really great. This is good stuff. They came out with commitments that they really needed to solidify amongst their team. And again, they're constantly seeking to improve. So I guess those are the folks that I want to connect with, is leaders who say, hey, I know we can be better. I want to be better. Because sometimes, I mean, unfortunately, I come across leaders that they're content. They're just kind of content with having a team that's not all that functional or that's reached a certain level. And as you mentioned earlier, I forget how you said it, but you're talking about leadership, about arriving. Well, no team has arrived. You can always improve. You can always be better. So I'm looking to connect with those folks who are like, hey, I want to have a better team, regardless of where I'm at. And so, yeah.
Mike, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Dan, you bet, man. It's my pleasure.